You're a teenager with an addiction to technology, so your parents send you to a special summer camp where kids with your problems are separated from their smartphones and computers. During a 3-day hike in the forest, your camp group is attacked by mutant brothers that love to eat humans. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the mutants in Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight. Before we start the video, I just need like 15 seconds to quickly advertise to you. Subscribe to Showsplanation so you don't miss future breakdowns of your favorite shows. We have a Patreon in the description that you can donate to support this YouTube channel. Don't forget to visit mebomber.com for cool and funny clothing. The website, mebomber.com, is in the description. Alright, back to the video. A mailman on a bike is riding through the forest. He knocks on the door of a house in the forest to deliver some letters, but nobody answers. An old woman is inside the house washing laundry, and she has blood on her hands and chest. The mailman hears the muffled sound of someone screaming, coming from the house's basement, and he thinks someone is trapped down there. He rips open the wooden boards blocking the opening to the basement. He enters through the basement's opening. This is a huge mistake. You have no idea who is down in that basement or what is going on. The minimum consequence for these actions involve you possibly losing your job for trespassing and destroying property. If you are in this situation and suspect something criminal occurring inside a house, do not enter the house yourself. Leave the property immediately, and from a safe distance call the police. The police are trained and equipped to tackle dangerous situations. You are not. Back to the story. A mystery culprit drags the mailman inside the basement by his feet. The mailman screams in pain as he is viciously attacked. 30 years pass since this incident. A school bus drives through the same forest. The bus arrives at a camp for teenagers with an addiction to technology. The campers are required to surrender their phones and electronic devices to the camp leaders. On a side note, this is a Polish movie, so the names of the characters are difficult to pronounce. Forgive me if I pronounce the characters' names incorrectly. The first main character introduced is Ulik, then Bartek is introduced, Daniel is introduced, Aniela is introduced, Zosha is introduced. Then one of the camp's employees drives up. Her name is Isa. The teenagers are gathered for a camp orientation speech. The campers are split into groups by drawing random numbers from a bag. Later that night, the campers gather around a campfire to sing songs and eat food. The story cuts to the same creepy house from the beginning of the story, where the mailman was attacked. An old woman is opening the door to the basement. She struggles to drag a deer carcass inside and accidentally trips and falls face first down the basement. The old lady is unconscious. Her keys flew out of her pockets, and a creepy deformed hand slowly grabs them. The old lady wakes up and screams in terror as she is killed by a mutant, which was chained in the basement and just used the key she dropped to free itself. A deformed mutant walks up the basement stairs. It's morning and the campers are getting ready for the day. A priest drives up to the camp. The priest says a prayer for God to help these campers overcome their evil addiction to technology. The main characters are all together in the same camp group, and Isa introduces herself as their designated camp group leader. The group heads off to do a 3-day hike through the forest. They hike deep into the forest. Zosha sees a random hand mysteriously disappear behind a tree. She chooses not to tell the group what she saw, thinking they would not believe her. The group sets up tents by a lake to spend the night. At night, Daniel and Aniela sneak away to the lake to have intercourse. Aniela heads back to the main group after they finish doing the nasty. Daniel stays at the lake by himself and uses a cell phone that he managed to hide from the camp employees. A mutant sneaks up on Daniel while he's distracted with his phone. The mutant zips Daniel inside his sleeping bag and drags him away. The mutant repeatedly swings Daniel's body into a tree until he dies. In my opinion, Daniel brought this upon himself. Do not leave the safety of your camp group to fool around in a forest that you are not familiar with. If it weren't a mutant, you could have gotten attacked by a bear or some other animal. The next morning, the group wakes up and finds Daniel missing from his tent. The group searches for clues around the lake since it was the last place where he was seen. Zosha notices blood on a nearby tree. Isa decides to split the group up to search for Daniel. Isa, Ulik, and Zosha search for Daniel together, and the rest of the group wait by the lake in case he returns. It's against the camp rules to have technology, and even the employees adhere to this rule. This is a a major problem. When they find out Daniel is dead, the camp can be sued for negligence because its employees don't have cell phones or walkie-talkies in their possession to communicate during emergencies when they are alone with teenagers in a forest. If you ever start a camp business, don't be this stupid. The search party stumbles upon the fence surrounding the property that the mutant was previously chained in. They want to ask whoever lives in the house if they've seen Daniel, so they squeeze through an opening in the fence. They knock on the front door and nobody answers. They decide to open the front door and enter without permission. This is a red flag. Isa is an adult directing teenage campers to join her in committing a crime called breaking and entering, punishable by a couple months to a couple years in jail, depending on where you live. Breaking and entering could also result in surprised homeowners shooting you in self-defense. The level of unprofessionalism and bad decision-making that Isa has demonstrated indicates that she is unfit to lead a group of underage campers. I would inform Isa that her behavior is irresponsible and criminal, then attempt to talk the other campers into joining me and heading back, with or without Isa. Isa would have little choice but to escort us back to camp immediately, or risk looking even worse and possibly losing her job. The group enters and explores the house. They hear footsteps coming from the basement. Isa decides to open the basement door to investigate the sound they heard. Isa and Zosha walk down the stairs into the basement. Yulik hears footsteps coming from outside. Isa and Zosha see Daniel's dead body. The mutant enters the house. The entire group tries to hide in the basement to avoid the mutant. This reminds me of the saying, "Play stupid games, win stupid prizes." Their prize for breaking and entering is being stuck in a house, hiding from a killer. The mutant goes down the stairs into the basement. Isa rips away the wooden boards covering the basement window for the group to escape. Zosha and Yulik climb out the basement through the opening that Isa made. Isa sees a cell phone in Daniel's pocket that he managed to sneak into the camp. Isa decides to stay in the basement and fight the mutant so she can use Daniel's cell phone to call the police. This is a huge mistake. Isa's life is too important to be risking. She's the only person in the group that knows her way around this forest. The campers would be lost and confused in the forest without her. Unless you are a champion mixed martial arts fighter, do not attempt to fight a killer that is multiple times bigger than you. Grabbing a metal pipe like Isa did will do nothing to prevent someone significantly larger from overpowering you. Plus, females only have 37 to 68% of the muscle strength of males in general. If you are a woman, the best decision is to avoid a hand-to-hand confrontation with a man. Isa should have escaped the basement with the campers, then outran the big slow mutant all the way back to camp, while taking as many rest breaks as necessary. This massive deformed creature doesn't exactly look like an Olympic sprinter or long-distance runner. As expected, Isa gets killed trying to fight the mutant. Zosha and Yulik are shocked when they see Isa's decapitated head fly out the basement window. The two run away into the forest. They are lost and Yulik panics. Zosha slaps Yulik to calm him down and gives him a pep talk. This is not the time to stop and chit-chat or to have a mental breakdown. The mutant lives in the forest, so it knows the area better than you do. It has the advantage. If you need to rest, then slow down to a walking pace, but never completely stop moving or you are allowing the mutant to close the distance between y'all. And any communication louder than a whisper is just helping the mutant figure out your location. Keep moving and whisper while you figure out how to get back to camp. Zosha tells Yulik that they should go back to the basement to get Daniel's cell phone to call for help. Yulik is against the idea. Thankfully, somebody in this movie has a functioning brain. Good job, Yulik. Bartek and Aniela are still waiting at the lake and having a conversation. The mutant sneaks up behind the two and stabs a metal pole through the back of Aniela's head. Bartek is terrified and runs into the forest. The mutant tosses Aniela's dead body and stares at Bartek as he flees into the forest. Turns out that there's two different mutants, because there's no way the big and slow creature back at the basement made it all the way to the lake that quickly. The campers' chances of survival have dropped drastically. There are two mutants after them that know the forest better than they do, and one of the mutants may be waiting around the lake if Zosha and Yulik unknowingly head back there to meet up with the left behind members of their group. Zosha and Yulik are lost in the forest. Typically, if you're lost, it's a good idea to create markings on trees or with branches on the ground so you can identify where you've already been. However, when killers are after you in the forest, the last thing you want to do is give them any clues about your location or what direction you're heading. The smartest thing to do in this situation is climb to the top of a tree to scout the area. While up the tree, look for buildings or a body of water like a river that you can follow to eventually find civilization. Zosha and Ulick stumble upon a cabin. The scene cuts to Bartek running until he stumbles upon a church. The scene cuts back again to Zosha and Ulick knocking on the door of the random cabin they stumbled upon. They explain their situation to the old man inside the cabin and ask for help. The scene cuts to Bartek telling a priest inside the church he stumbled upon that Aniela was killed and something bad is happening in the forest. The priest in the church does not believe Bartek and asks if he was drinking or doing drugs. While Bartek is explaining and crying, the priest hits him in the back of the head, knocks Bartek out, gags him, and ties him to a chair. It turns out the priest is a predator. The priest hears a sound outside and goes outside to investigate. The priest is ambushed by a mutant and has his eyes pushed in. The mutant throws the screaming priest into a nearby wood chipper. Bartek manages to free himself from his bindings. He looks outside through the church window and sees a mutant. He hides inside the church's confession booth. The mutant enters the church. The mutant finds Bartek hiding in the confession booth. The scene cuts back to Zosha and Ulick with the old man in the cabin. The old man shows the teenagers his prosthetic metal leg. He lost his legs to the two mutants in the past. He's actually the mailman from the beginning of the story that was dragged feet first into the basement, so apparently the mailman did not die like we were led to believe. He just got his legs eaten off. The old man tells the campers the background story of the mutants. The mutants' background story is that there was a poor mother and her two twin boys that lived in the forest. Everything was fine until one afternoon there was a meteor that crashed into the forest. The curious kids find the meteor rock and keep it under their bed. A black goo emerges from the meteor rock and takes control of the kids while they sleep. The mom wakes up the next day to find her sons eating the family dog in the basement. The terrified mother locks her sons in the basement. The old man in the cabin does not have a phone. He tells the campers that the nearest village is 2 days away and that they are free to stay in his cabin for safety, but that's all the help he can offer them. The campers refuse to hide in the old man's cabin forever and storm out. Big mistake. They should have stayed at the cabin to eat food and drink water. A person can survive without water for about 3 days. In general, a person can survive without food for about 1 to 2 months. A fully hydrated and fed body can endure the 2-day walk to the nearest village without any stops or sleeping, so the big slow mutant does not get the opportunity to catch up. Plus, the campers failed to get any advice on how to get to the nearest village. So they left the safety of the old man's cabin, no better off than they were at the start. Zosha demands that they go back to the mutant's basement to get Daniel's cell phone, because they have no other choice. But there is another choice, which is much safer than entering the belly of the beast for a cell phone that could have been destroyed by now or ran out of battery. Most smartphones today have a lock screen that requires entering a code to even use the phone, and they don't know Daniel's password. Just walk to the nearest village. That's just 2 days away. 2 days is not a long time. Zosha and Ulick are back at the mutant's basement. For some reason, these campers were able to navigate their way through the forest well enough to get back to the mutant's house without any problem, but they refused to use that brain power to find their way to the nearest village. Zosha and Ulick hear the mutant still in the house. They discuss the plan of waiting around the house until the mutant leaves to sneak inside the basement for Daniel's phone. Huge mistake. The mutant has just demonstrated a lack of interest in killing the teenagers by remaining at the house after they ran away earlier. This means the task of getting to the nearest village has just gotten a lot less dangerous. Put enough distance between you and the house in 1 day, and the likelihood of getting caught by the disinterested mutant is slim to none. Plus, you know there are 2 mutants. At least one is in the house, and you're not sure about the second mutant. So waiting outside the house for a mutant to leave is a recipe for getting caught by the other mutant. Turns out this group is stupider than I thought. Instead of waiting outside the property for an unknown period of time for the mutant to leave the house, which is already a bad idea, they decide on an even more dangerous plan of Yurik actively making noise to draw the mutant's attention outside, for Zosha to sneak into the house to get the cell phone. Ulick bangs on the front door. A mutant leaves the basement to investigate the noise. Zosha enters the basement and finds Daniel's cell phone. Zosha gets caught by one of the mutants. Zosha tries to escape out the basement window, but is pulled back inside by the mutant. The mutant grabs Zosha by her neck. Ulick hears Zosha scream and goes into the house through the front door. He enters the basement moment and stabs the mutant in the back while it's choking Zosha. After being stabbed in the back, the mutant punches Zosha in the face, which knocks her unconscious on the ground. The mutant pulls the knife out of its back, stabs Ulick in the stomach with the same knife, and then bites off the boy's tongue. Zosha wakes up chained to a wall. Ulick is chained right next to her, and in serious pain with his tongue completely pulled out his mouth and a knife in his stomach. As I mentioned earlier, Zosha goes to use Daniel's phone, but can't get past the lock screen code. She gets lucky and finds Daniel's dismembered arm conveniently on the ground right next to her, so that she can use his fingerprint to get past the cell phone's lock screen. The phone immediately dies before she can even make a single phone call. Zosha cries in despair and tries to comfort Ulick. Zosha turns the knife in Ulick's stomach to mercy kill him because he is slowly dying and in too much pain. The mutant brothers are upstairs communicating with each other in a strange language only they can understand. One mutant grabs an axe and leaves the house. The other mutant that was stabbed in the back goes to sleep. Zosha uses the knife in Ulick's stomach to unlock her chains. She runs to the basement window about to escape, but decides last second not to run after looking at her friends' dead bodies. She decides to fight back. Without a gun, the odds are slim to none for this skinny teenage girl with no combat experience to somehow kill two giant mutated brothers that kill people and animals on a regular basis. Staying behind to fight these mutants is essentially a suicide mission. Zosha finds a giant knife in the basement. She quietly opens the basement door and sees one of the mutants sleeping. She slowly sneaks up on the sleeping mutant. Zosha repeatedly stabs the mutant to death with the giant knife. The knife is being wielded with such force that it somehow goes completely through the mutant's giant body and mattress. It does not make sense for a scrawny teenage girl to have this kind of strength. Even after the first stab, the mutant should have woken up and overpowered Zosha. There's no logical reason for the mutant to just remain motionless and passively allow the small woman to keep stabbing him. If you are in this situation, don't expect the person you're stabbing to remain completely motionless. In a more realistic scenario, what she should have done is first stab the mutant's eyes out, so even when it wakes up, it cannot see or put up a good fight. After stabbing the mutant to death, Zosha runs out of the house into the forest. The scene cuts to the old man in his cabin. After hearing a knock on the door, he grabs his gun. The old man thinks it's a mutant and prepares to shoot whoever opens the door. It does not make sense why he would just assume that it's a mutant when just moments ago there were teenage campers at his front door. Turns out the person opening the door is Bartek, who then gets shot to death. Why is Bartek even still alive when he was shown earlier in the movie being caught hiding and trapped in a church's confession booth by one of the mutants? This makes zero sense. Then why would Bartek just open the door to a random cabin without even trying to announce himself? It also left me puzzled why the old man would immediately shoot without getting a good look first at who was opening his cabin door, especially when moments earlier he was just visited by teenage campers. The scene cuts to a random police officer in the forest paying a prostitute for her services before she leaves. Zosha runs into the police officer and asks for help. Zosha and the cop are driving together in the forest when the cop accidentally runs over one of the mutants. The cop gets out the car to see what he hit. Zosha looks out the back window, sees it's the mutant, and bangs on the window to tell the cop to stay away from it. The cop does not listen and continues to slowly approach the mutant he just hit with his car. The cop looks back at the car, and when he turns back around to look at the mutant, it has gotten back on its feet. The mutant swings an axe and cuts the cop completely in half. The mutant slowly walks up to the car. Zosha moves to the driver's seat and turns the car on. For some reason, the cop left the keys in the ignition when he got out the car. How convenient. This has got to be the luckiest girl on the planet. Zosha is having trouble getting the car to start. The mutant climbs on the roof of the car and swings his axe through the roof to try to kill Zosha. Not sure why the mutant did not just walk to the driver's side window to kill Zosha. It takes less effort to swing an axe through a glass window than a metal roof. Plus, you can see your target better through the driver's side window than guessing their position when you are on a car roof. Zosha finally manages to start the car, and the mutant falls off. Instead of driving away, she decides to reverse the car and hit the mutant. She repeats the process of driving over the mutant a couple times until she thinks it's dead. Then Zosha drives away crying. This was a bad idea. The mutant is huge. In reality, hitting something that big and heavy would have likely crashed the car. The airbags would have gone off and the vehicle might have been undrivable afterwards. Plus, Zosha is not 100% sure the mutant is dead because she did not get out the vehicle to check. Simply assuming it's dead because it stopped moving is the same mistake the police officer made when he got out the car. And it turns out she was wrong. Neither the mutant she ran over or the one she stabbed while it was sleeping is dead. The mutant she hit with the car slowly gets up. Turns out that running it over a couple times was not enough to kill it. Then the mutant that Zosha stabbed while it was sleeping is shown to be alive as well and gets up out the bed. Zosha should have decapitated these mutants to make sure they are dead. It would have been no problem for Zosha back at the house to cut off the head of the mutant in the bed with the same knife that she used to stab it. The mutant on the road had an axe with him that he used to slice the police officer in half. It would have been no problem for Zosha to grab that axe to hack off its head and ensure that it stays dead. But that's the end of the movie. But what do you think? What would you do differently if you were one of the campers? Let me know with a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more of these kinds of videos. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you liked the video. Until next time, have a great day.